Please. Shut up the ringer anyway. Okay. Linda Levi is the Director of Global Archives at the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee. The JDC Archives is one of the most significant collections in the world for the study of modern Jewish history. The JDC includes 3 miles of text documents, over 100,000 photographs, and over 6,000 books, and 1,100 audio recordings, including oral histories. The JDC's archives are situated in 2 centers, New York and Jerusalem. Ms. Levi is a graduate of New York University. She received her MA in Contemporary Jewish Studies from Brandeis University. She has lectured extensively about JDC archives, including at previous IAJGS conferences. Linda.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ronnie. Before I begin, I just wanted to ask 2 questions. Has anyone here not heard of the Joint? Okay, so I know I need to make certain assumptions. And secondly, I'd like to know if anyone here has used our database and found background on their families. Fabulous, fabulous. We've got about 5 people in the room. Great. Maybe in the Q&A you'll tell us a little bit about what you found. It can be exciting for others as well. Can you hear me clearly? Okay, great. The American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee is an American Jewish organization established in 1914 in response to the crisis that the outbreak of World War I had on Jewish communities in Europe and in Palestine. We date our foundings to a famous telegram that arrived in August of 1914 from Ambassador Henry Morgenthau, who was then the United States ambassador to Constantinople in the Ottoman Empire. He sent a telegram to his friend Jacob Schiff in New York talking about the plight of Jews in Palestine who are cut off from traditional avenues of support, and asked Schiff to wire $50,000. That day, a telegram came back from Schiff to Morgenthau saying, basically, you've got it. The organization was called the American Joint Distribution Committee for the Distribution of American Funds for Jewish War Sufferers. That was the intent in the early years, and Joint Distribution Committee was the term given to the coming together of 3 organizations that had arisen in the Jewish community of America in response to what was happening. The American Jewish Relief Committee was established by the German Jews through the American Jewish Committee. The Central Relief Committee was a committee established by the Union of Orthodox Congregations of America. These 2 groups came together in 1914, and they were joined by a 3rd group, the Jewish People's Committee, established by workers' groups in 1915. Given the depth and the breadth of the organization's work in so many countries around the world, 90 countries since 1914, we are one of the most important repositories of modern Jewish history. And researchers from around the world utilize our collections. They used to have to come to New York or Jerusalem to access the microfilm or the paper collections. And since 2008, we have been digitizing huge quantities of our text collection, and most of it is available for searching online. We have a website with an online database, and I'll be showing you a little bit about that. I want to add a word about our oral history collections. Often you hear about oral histories of survivors or people who received assistance. Our oral history collection really is of the caregivers. JDC has been blessed with longtime staff people who may have begun to work during the Holocaust years or soon thereafter and worked for the organization for 4, 5, even 6 decades, working in many, many different countries in response to many different issues and crises and populations. And our oral histories are long interviews, in later years videos of some of those both longtime lay leaders and professional leaders of the organization. We began an indexing project in 2009, and I have to say that it was born at an IAJGS conference in Philadelphia when the head of the JGS of New York, Linda Cantor, approached me and said, have you ever thought about indexing your remittance lists and other important records in your archives? We of the JGS would be able to help recruit a group of volunteers to help you do that. And thus was born a project that continues full speed to this day. And our names index is the most popular feature of our website. There is growing and growing increase in Jewish family history and genealogy. And our initial core of volunteers from the JGS continue to contribute what is an invaluable service to enable us to have this names index. So if any of you are based in New York and inclined to lend a hand to this effort, please see me after the session. We can talk. Today we probably have over 500,000 names in our names index, and you have up here a few examples, a few of many examples of the kinds of documents that have been indexed. I could say that we have indexed all of our lists related to the Jewish refugees in Japan and Shanghai. That we have, has anyone heard of the ship, the Serpa Pinto? The ship, the Serpa Pinto, in World War II was a ship that was leased to do more sailings than any ship, rescuing people from Lisbon and Spain, and bringing people to the West. There were 44 sailings, of which many people were supported by JDC for those sailings, and all of our Serpa Pinto travelers lists have been digitized lately. We're now working on a major project of our Soviet and East European transmigrants who have left in the late 60s through the early 70s, and were helped by JDC en route in Rome and Vienna. Those records are being digitized now. We probably have over 3,000 ready already online, and there will be more material coming soon. We have index cards of various sorts that have been indexed. We have over 1,000 cards of Jewish prisoners of war in Siberia. What's very interesting about those cards is, first of all, they're so early. The data is handwritten and includes information like country of origin and citizenship and name, occupation, and other personal details handwritten along with a photo of the person. These are people who were helped by JDC's office in Vladivostok during and after World War I. We have case cards of our Barcelona cases families who were being helped by us in the 1940s. Many, when France fell to the Nazis, the only route out to the Atlantic was Spain and Portugal. Many people walked across the Pyrenees. and came to Barcelona and were assisted by the JDC office in Barcelona. Some of them moved on to Lisbon and were helped there, but those were the JDC. When JDC had to close its office, its overseas headquarters in Paris, because the Nazis occupied Paris, we moved first to southern France, and then later we opened an office in Lisbon and operated from there. In the immediate post-war era, when there were so many displaced persons in camps and in other situations in Germany and Austria and Italy, we had an emigration service that was based in Munich and Vienna, and we have index cards for each of those cities where that include the full family names, where the people were from, the date of birth of the head of family, the accompanying members, the desired destination, and when the file was closed, which basically means when they emigrated generally. There are about 80,000 of those cards, and they've all been digitized. We also have a Transmigration Bureau deposit cards. This meant that there were Jews in America, Jews in South America also, who deposited money with Joint to be able to have Joint get the money to, say, Vienna, to help my grandfather's relative pay for his passage out of Vienna. We have a Transmigration Bureau deposit card from my grandfather. A Hungarian refugee registration cards. After the revolution in Hungary in 1956, as many of you know, about 15,000 Jews left Hungary and were assisted by the JDC in Vienna. We have index cards for each of those people. There are about 10,000 cards. They have all been digitized. An interesting story that I like to tell is that I have a friend who was born in a DP camp to a Hungarian family. She knew that there was an immigration service card from Munich for her family, and she had seen that. When we had digitized our Hungary refugee card, she saw the card for her aunt and uncle who came out in 1956. And when we digitized more of the text collection, she saw reports about the conditions in Ukraine that led her grandmother to leave Ukraine, where they were living at a certain point of time, because of the disastrous pogroms and other things that were happening there. So my friend likes to say, I thought I was a JDC baby, but we're actually a JDC family. We have recently been reconnected to our Warsaw office collection from 1945 to 1949. This is the immediate post-war period when we returned to Poland to help the survivors, to help people find their families, to help develop local community services, to help with the many, many needs that there were, working to help reunite children with the Jewish community, children who had been in the care of non-Jewish families or the church at that time. And this collection of 4 years before we were kicked out by the communist government, this collection of 4 years is a very valuable collection that was packed up to ship out when we were forced to leave Poland. At the last minute, the authorities wouldn't let us ship the material, and it was confiscated. It was ultimately put in the basement of the Jewish Historical Institute, minus some boxes that probably the Secret Service kept. But most of the collection was put in the basement of the Jewish Historical Institute in Poland. To be able to access it, you had to go to Poland. Digitization has enabled us to embark on a project in partnership with the Jewish Historical Institute to reunite the collection, to digitize it, and to make it accessible online. And one of the gentlemen here in the audience today told me that he did a search and he found a document about his family from that collection. I've already said that our database project with the names index is possible only through the work of a wonderful group of volunteers. We've had 19 people volunteering for us thus far. And we are doing volunteering work on the names indexing both in New York and in Jerusalem. The work has to happen in those two places in our offices. We've been asked by many people, could they do it from their homes? It's not something that we're open to at this point in time because of the quality assurance that we are very particular about. You see here a photo at the top of Linda Cantor, who really initiated this project and is still a volunteer for us 1 day a week. I'm going to show you some of the famous and not so famous people who have found material or about whom we have material in our names index and in our database. Former Chief Rabbi Lau of Israel and his brother Naftali Levi were both in Buchenwald, and they were orphans from Buchenwald who JDC helped move to France first. And they were in children's homes in France, and then they were helped come to Israel from France. And we have both of their names, listing their names as Lau. It's Israel Lau and Naftali Lau on this one list. And we have a picture of the young boy in this picture is the, on the left, that's the former Chief Rabbi of Israel. Elie Wiesel, actually this was not such a simple one to find, but an AP journalist found this for us. There's a mistake. His name was written Wiesen. It's really Wiesel. It's Laser Wiesel, not Laser Wiesen. Born on the birth date of Elie Wiesel in Siget. This is Elie Wiesel. Orphan children from Buchenwald, now in Paris, brought to Paris by the JDC. This is from 1945. May his memory be blessed. When the Nazis came into Poland in 1939, many Jews tried to escape to Vilna. We had a caseload in Vilna of 11, 12, 13,000 people. We had been working in Vilna before. The community was not able to help sufficiently with the entire influx of refugees who needed help, and the JDC was there to help. We have indexed, and this is one of the first lists that we did, a list that has over 9,000 names of refugees who are being helped in Vilna. And here we have the list with Menachem Begin's name. This list includes many, many names, including many Zionist leaders from different parties, many famous rabbis, and just many Amcha people. My friend Shelley Binder found her mother on the list and just burst out crying when she saw it. That's a very typical response that we see when people find their family in one of our documents, particularly from the World War II documents. Out of an effort to make our material, to curate the material a little bit more and make it even more user-friendly, from the World War II era, we initiated a project called Our Shared Legacy, World War II and the Joint, where we publicized it as such, and we're covered by the New York Times and NPR and other places. We arranged over 25 photo galleries by country and by place within the country of photos from JDC's work in countries where we were working in that period, and that ranges from Shanghai to Kobe, Japan, to some of the South American countries that accepted refugees, to countries that had DP camps like Germany and Austria and Italy, Sweden, Norway, and a large group of countries. And to the extent that we had enough photos, we would create a special gallery for each place within that country, so that within Germany there are photos that are organized by the different DP camps. And there's an opportunity to recognize people, to recognize people that you may recognize in the photos and let us know about them. We've had many photos with responses of people recognizing people. We're very excited when you see a photo. There's an iconic photo that we have of nurses in the Dominican Republic in the Sosua settlement, where you have 3 nurses, I think, holding about 5 babies, and we've identified all the babies. It's exciting. It's a little sad sometimes when you have 2 people identifying the same person as someone else, because so many people are left with holes, and we had one very upsetting situation where a woman didn't know what happened to her sister, and she was sure that a particular photo was her sister and therefore proved that she lived. And she really did look like the sister in a younger photo that we were shown, but the story in terms of the geography didn't work, and someone else had also been identified as that person. So that was particularly sad. This is just a map of the world that highlights places where we have included lists in our names index. We have a database that includes our text records and all of our text records, and you'll find material of genealogical interest throughout our text records. Our names database takes certain lists that are very long, like that Vilna caseload list, or sets of very historically important index cards, like the Hungarian refugees, and indexes them in a names index that is very user-friendly to use. You just put in a name, and you press a button, and you see the document. So that people who search in our names index may or may not find something, depending on whether the material related to that person has been included in the names index yet. But if someone thinks that the person should be connected to JDC, you can look in the names index first. If you don't find something, I encourage you to look in our names database as well. In our regular text collection database as well, because you may find something different. We've made an effort in the names index to be somewhat inclusive. We were very heavy on remittance lists from the early years of the joint initially. Then we moved on to World War II lists that were of importance. And since then, we've tried to move on to a list that would be of interest to other segments of the community. We have Egyptian refugees who have gone to France and Brazil. We have Hungarian refugees who went to Brazil. We've recently added some lists from the Operation Magic Carpet of Yemenite Jews who were brought to Israel, the passenger lists. Well, I'm repeating myself a little bit. There are many kinds of lists from the World War II era. Care packages, the card collections I've mentioned, the ship lists, expelled refugees. There were Polish Jews who were living in Germany who were expelled by the Germans and had to go to Spanien. We have a list indexed of Polish Jewish refugees in Spanien. Yeshiva and rabbinical students who came from Lithuania to Japan and then to Shanghai, those lists have been indexed as well. We were very lucky that one of our initial volunteers is a man named Klaus Hirsch. Klaus was the treasurer of the JGS in New York and was himself a refugee in Shanghai. We have a photo of him here from our photo collection. And we have a listing of him and the other members of his family from one of the Shanghai lists. He took particular interest in the Shanghai lists. It was a very meaningful experience for him. He became reacquainted with names and people whom he hadn't thought of for a long time. He helped us identify famous people who were helped by the JDC in Shanghai, people like the abstract artist Peter Max, who was really Peter Max Finkelstein, people like Michael Blumenthal, the former U.S. Treasury Secretary, and the experience of volunteering his time for a period and a place that were of great personal significance and meaning to him was a very rewarding experience for him and for us. We have a lot of lists of children. We've tried to focus on that because, partly because we thought many of the children from the World War II era are still alive, or their children are still alive, and this is of great genealogical interest to people who are living today. So we have lists of children in Holland who JDC was trying to assist to emigrate to the U.S. in 1940. Of yeshiva students in wartime Japan, of Jewish orphans who immigrated from Warsaw to France in 1940. This is right after the war. Jewish orphans after the war who we tried to get out of France, Warsaw to France. Many of those went on to Israel, to Palestine then. Jewish refugee children on the Serpa Pinto. And refugee children in Spain and Portugal. There are many, many, many lists with children, and that has been a focus of ours from the beginning. We've done a lot of those lists, and we continue to add new lists all the time. If you've used our names index in the past, please come back and try again. We are constantly adding new lists. This is an example of somebody who is very well versed in Jewish history and Jewish historical archives and records. It's Dr. Haim Gertner, who's director of the Vashem Archives. Haim's father was in Spain and Portugal with as a refugee, helped by JDC. And Haim brought his father to our office in Jerusalem one day, and we prepared a presentation for him of all of the photos and the documents related to his family in our collection. Haim knew that that his family had records about them in our collection, but I think that when we put them all together, it was very exciting. These are some of the sample lists. This one is hard to read, but it's yeshiva students receiving aid from the JDC in Japan in 1941. That when the United States entered the war against Japan, obviously, in 1941, all of these refugees had to leave Japan fast, and most of them were assisted to go to Shanghai. And this is an example of refugee children with the name of the parents and other relatives. JDC was constantly networking and trying to connect people with their families and to solicit aid from the families to help their family members during this period. When I see the records of this organization in so many places, many that I haven't mentioned, like Manila, the Philippines, or Cuba, or Jamaica, or Morocco, Tangier, other places during the World War II period, the efforts that Joint went to in those years to help people who were escaping Nazism are really quite mind-boggling, really quite astonishing. This is a list from the Serpa Pinto. We were approached by an Israeli diplomat, Ruven Avidan, who knew that his mother had come on the Serpa Pinto from Lisbon, and he wanted to know whether we had any records on that. And we His mother's name was Maria Rosenblatt, and here we have 12-year-old Maria Rosenblatt on this passenger list of the Serpa Pinto. But we also found that she was in a photo. He showed us some photos that he had and identified his mother as the tall girl. Here, we had the photo, but we didn't know the names of the people, so he helped us identify his his mother, and we had a Barcelona case card for Maria and her family. So we, through our digitization efforts, we're able to reconnect our photos with our text documents, with our index cards, and to really do a much more meaningful search of our records. It's fabulous. This is a sample record of a passenger list from Operation Magic Carpet. Of interest here is that there are almost 50,000 names in English, so you have to think of English speakers sitting in Aden in a refugee camp, processing people who have crossed deserts to get from Yemen to Aden, who don't speak English and are communicating their names. So there are some mistakes on these names that are in English. And there are family units here. The names are not familiar to the English-speaking people who are listing the names. So when you look at the names, sometimes it's difficult to know what is the last name and what is the first name. We think there's a code that we've cracked, and we've been working on it, but we're excited about a project with the Israel Genealogy Research Association in Israel. They are taking these lists and translating the names into Hebrew, working with local Yemenite people who are more familiar with the lists and the families and what the names probably are. They may know some of the family members, and they're translating it into Hebrew so that they're available on the IGRA database in Hebrew or in English with a link to the PDF document in our records. This will be a fabulous collaboration that makes a collection much more accessible to a Hebrew-speaking public who we assume that most of the Yemenite Jews who will want to access this collection are more comfortable with the Hebrew than with the English. One of the things of interest on this list is that one of the categories is weight. 49,000 Jews were being shuttled from Aden to Israel, to the newly established state of Israel, and it was still a dangerous flight in late 1948, 1949, and they tried to get as many people on board the planes as possible, and that's why they weighed everybody, so that they would be able to get to a total weight for the flights. I want to talk a little bit about some of the other resources that we have on our website. We've created a website that is intended to be useful to many, many different audiences. Not only the scholarly community that is well-versed in conducting research in databases. For those who are well-versed in that, we have a Search the Archive section where one can enter into our database and search our photos and our text collections and our names collections in great detail and search by any number of different parameters. But in addition to that, we have created a number of online exhibits that are curated exhibits. One is about JDC and the children of the DP camps. This is a fairly large exhibit which is intended to tell the story about what happened within the DP camps. How did they get started? Who was in charge? What was the JDC doing? What were others doing? What kind of help was given? And there are chapters organized by type of activity and the ability to recognize people in photos. This was created because I was being asked a lot of questions by people who were born either in the DP camps or slightly before, slightly after, who were having a hard time putting all the pieces together. And the background of this exhibit really was to create something that would pull all the pieces together and explain what happened. Who was in the DP camps, what happened when the East European Jews came into Germany, for example, what happened to those who no country wanted. There were many, many questions that we asked ourselves and tried to answer in these exhibits. A second exhibit is the work of the Joint in the Soviet Union in the 1920s and 30s in a project called the Agri-Joint, which was an attempt to establish farming communities with Jews so that they wouldn't be considered parasites in the newly communist society, to train them to work on the land. And this was a major effort of the 20s and 30s, which had a tragic end. Because Stalin arrested many of the Agri-Joint workers in the end. A third exhibit, which is really the first exhibit, is in the beginning, JDC's Beginnings, and it tells the story of how these three different organizations came together and what kind of activities they embarked on initially for emergency relief and how the organization changed its philosophy from emergency help to reconstruction and helping to be enablers for local Jewish communities. We have topic guides. These are intended for educators of all sorts, educators of adults, of university students, of high school students, of youth groups. We've taken a number of topics that we feel lend themselves to a topic guide. Some of the topics include the story of the SS St. Louis. Another is refuge in Shanghai. A third is JDC and the U.S. War Refugee Board. And a fourth is JDC and the displaced persons camps. These are an attempt to showcase certain very selected, significant primary sources, text sources. They're PDFs of some of these select sources, along with a general story of that event, and a number of photos or videos or films that can be used. This is material that can be used in a modular way as the user wants to. We have found this material to be extremely popular, particularly the topic guide about the SS St. Louis. From the beginning of our website to now, it is one of the top 10 accessed features. It was important for us to create a topic guide on the U.S. War Refugee Board because it was an important organization that did some good, a lot of good, whatever it could, because it was established so late in the war. But a little known fact is that the funding for the U.S. War Refugee Board came almost entirely from the Joint. That a U.S. agency would be funded almost entirely by the Joint is, I think, an unprecedented situation, and one that we feel is very significant. We have an interactive timeline which shows the work, using a globe, shows the work of the organization in that decade across the globe, giving a glimpse of the work of the organization. We have blog posts, and our photos are digitized and searchable by many, many parameters. You can search for photos by topic, by country, by decade, by year, by age group, by anything. And our finding aids are all online, and it is now getting much easier to move from our finding aids into our database. When you see a file name in our finding aids now, you can click the file name and get right into the database to see all of the documents in that file. This is the home page of the website. For those of you who are familiar with our website, we've changed the home page a little bit, so it may look a little different. The names index is circled here. You just put a name there and you do a search. We have a section for family historians, researchers, and educators. Section goes to the topic guides. When you go in to explore the archives, you can find out about our collections, reach our finding aids, and there's some information for family researchers, including the lists of the lists that are included in our names database. There are many, many lists in our archives and in our collections, but you won't find the name of your relative in the names index unless there is a list in the list of lists that shows that this list that sounds like your relative might have been helped there has already been included in the names index. And this is the place where you should see the lists in the names database, and they're organized by chronologically. We've tried to create a new section for lists related to Palestine, which will be changed as we get more lists related to Israel. But these examples here are all from before the end of 1940, before mid-1948. We have remittance lists to Palestine, which are primarily to help rabbis in the Yishuv. Remittance for Jaffa. These are all remittance lists. Many of them are lists to rabbis. And within these lists, you see the name. There's their names that recur. Hirsch Manischewitz from the Manischewitz family was a very charitable man and sent many, many remittances to rabbis in Palestine at this time. His name appears over and over again in some of these remittance lists. Some of our current priorities include Warsaw lists. With the digitization of our post-war collection of the Warsaw office, we've been noticing in our Google statistics how many people are looking for material in those Warsaw lists, and we are looking for the key lists here, which should be accessible via the names database as well. And these are some of the lists that we have already added to the names index. Can you read it? Or should I? You can see it? So I don't have to read them all, okay? But many of them have to do with children and orphans. And there are many more that we hope to do. Within the Warsaw collection, there is the Warsaw Emigration Service, where we had cards. We have not indexed those yet. They're digitized and they're searchable in our regular database, but they are not indexed to be available through the simple search of the names index. We hope to get to that soon. Okay, the database is our text collections. So I mentioned this Warsaw collection from 1945 to 1949. That entire text collection has been digitized and is searchable by many, many different parameters by going into the search the archives section and then going into the text collections and doing what we call an advanced search. We have cherry-picked certain documents that are very significant and have lists of names from that collection, and we are having those hand-indexed by our volunteers into our names index so that they are quickly searchable from our home page, names index, API, just putting a name in and seeing that document. So the documents are already digitized. It's a matter of indexing them within the names index. Here's some examples of other lists of interests. I think I've mentioned many of them. I didn't mention the last one, which is JDC to aid to Algerian Jews after an earthquake. I knew the city and I forgot, so I don't want to say what city it was. Or Leonville, I think, but I'm not sure. Okay, now here's some instructions on how you do an advanced search. You go to our website, archives.jdc.org. In the top right-hand corner, you click Search the Archives. You then, on the left side, go to Expanded Search Option or Advanced Search. We keep changing the wording on that. I'm not sure what it is right now. It may say Advanced Search. And then you click the menu there to select Names Database or Text Collections. And you will be able, in the Names Database, to access the same documents that have been indexed, but by using other parameters, like the name of a ship or a particular location. And you're able to search using a greater group of, a larger group of parameters going in the advanced search to the names database this way. Okay, so to do a basic search, you just go to our main page where it says Search the Names Index, and you can put a name in. To conduct an advanced search, you go to the steps that we just described in the Search the Archives. We are available at archives@jdc.org. If you have any questions or run into any problems, please friend us on Facebook and join us on Instagram. And we are very happy to be of help to family genealogists, family researchers. We believe in this, and we see what a service this is. I'm happy to entertain any questions if there are. First, I'd like to ask if anyone who has found documents would like to tell everybody what they found. Yes, sir.
I started after the last session, and I went to the upper right-hand corner of the main page, and I forget exactly what I did from there, but I do recall I put in the name of the town rather than the name of the person. And lo and behold, up pops a form. I had an uncle that was in the Army, and he was in Paris in September of 1945, and he made a request to find the status of 3 of our family members from various towns in Poland at the Joint's office in Paris. The Joint's office in Paris sent the request to the Joint's office in Warsaw, and at the bottom of the form, there was another little form that had one of the names he was trying to find information about, and it looked like it was about 4 or 5 possibilities that were listed. The name happened to be Joseph Katz or Joseph Katz, and there was 4 Joseph Katz listed at the response from the Warsaw Joint's office, each with a little bit of different information, which leads me to believe those were different individuals, and it might have been the right one in there. And I think one of them was. So it was quite exciting to be able to find that.
Thank you. Great. That's from the post-war Warsaw collection, so it's very exciting for me to hear that. Anyone else want to share a story? He went to search the archives in the upper right-hand corner. He probably then went to a search in the text collections and did an advanced search, and it pulled up a number of fields, including location, and he filled in the town. Any questions? Yes, sir.
What sort of information
The care package is generally information about the name and address of the person who purchased the package or submitted the money to buy the package, and the name and address of the person to whom it was to be sent, and the size of the package that was purchased. We've indexed a group of packages that were purchased by people living in Palestine through our Jerusalem office for people living in Poland right after the war. That collection has been shared with IGRA, the Israel Genealogy Research Association, which has put those names in Hebrew online and in English with links to the documents in our database. Care packages, many of them, yes. Many lists of them. I can't guarantee that it's all of them, but many of them. Yes. CARE was established in those years. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very, very much. Yes.